Hey everyone, it's Alex from Alex on Autos reporting for my good buddy Roman because he was not able to make it out here to Ojai, California to take a look at the all-new 2021 Nissan Rogue. If you want to see me, you can find me over at youtube.com/AlexOnAutos. But since this is a TFL review, I'm going to go ahead and put on my TFL shirt, which thanks Roman for sending me one. If you want TFL merch, you can of course find that all in the TFL merch store. So now that I'm properly branded, let's dig on into the Rogue. For 2021, Nissan has completely redesigned the Rogue. This shares almost nothing with the outgoing model. It certainly has a boxier style to it as well. I want to know what you think about that down there in the comment section. We have full LED headlamps in all models with the same sort of angles that we saw in previous generation Nissan products, but certainly sharpened and made boxier. Now, according to Nissan, even though this is boxier than the last generation model, it's somehow 5% more aerodynamic as well. With the Rogue being the best-selling Nissan in North America, clearly they didn't want to change the formula too much, so this is instantly recognizable as a Nissan, instantly recognizable as a Rogue, and everything that makes the Rogue a Rogue hasn't deviated too much from that formula. So if you liked it before, you'll like this one. If you didn't like the Rogue too much before, I'm not sure that this is enough of a change to change your mind. As with the front, the rear end design is sort of a variation on the theme, so instantly recognizable as a Rogue. One thing that's surprising is even in this top end Platinum trim, we have combination tail lamp modules, so the turn signals are incandescent, but the brake light is LED. That's likely because this Platinum trim is significantly less expensive than the top end trims of the competition. One thing I found surprising for this generation of the Rogue is that even given its low sticker price, they decided to use an awful lot of aluminum. So we have an aluminum hood and aluminum front and rear doors. The rear doors, by the way, open to about 90 degrees, making getting in and out a lot easier, especially if you have kids or child seats involved. At least for the moment, there's just one engine on offer. It's a revised version of the 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine we saw in the last generation Rogue. Under this hood, it produces 181 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque. That's a slight bump over last year, but it's still a few horsepower shy of the RAV4 or CR-V. Fuel economy is, as you'd expect, pretty impressive, ranging from 28 to 30 miles per gallon depending on the version that you get, thanks to a standard continuously variable automatic transmission. If you're not a fan of CVTs, Nissan would like you to know that this one is programmed to imitate an 8-speed automatic transmission over a wide variety of different driving situations. However, there are still going to be times where it is obvious that you have a continuously variable transmission under the hood. On the other hand, that's how this gets 30 miles per gallon in select trims. For 2021, Nissan says that the Rogue has lost a little bit of weight, it's gained some aluminum body panels, and have also significantly improved the suspension. We have a new independent multi-link suspension in the rear and a revised suspension design up front. Unfortunately, the one thing that has not been significantly redesigned is the amount of power we have under the hood. And with a curb weight loss of just about 100 pounds, this is still going to be a slower 0 to 60 than a RAV4. In my preliminary tests out here in Santa Barbara, I ran 0 to 60 in 9.2 seconds. That is an improvement over the previous generation Rogue, but it's still about a full second slower than the RAV4. Bucking the trend of every new vehicle being larger than the previous generation, the Rogue has actually managed to shrink a little bit for 2021. This is 183 inches long, meaning it's just about an inch and a half shorter than the last Rogue. The big thing to know, however, is that the third row has not returned. There is no third row available in the 2021 Rogue. It doesn't seem to be planned for the future, and the second row seats no longer slide forward and backward because we don't have that third row back there. Now, Nissan won't say whether this is coming to other world markets, but I suspect this is going to remain two-row only. The biggest change happens on the inside, where we have not only more premium materials than we had before, but definitely a different styling direction than we've seen in the Rogue in the past. We still have Nissan's excellent zero-gravity seat design, but this has been tweaked for 2021 to improve the lumbar support and the ergonomics of the seat. These are some of the most comfortable front seats that you'll find in the compact crossover segment. I drove down here to Ojai and the Santa Barbara area in a Lexus RX 450h. 4.5 hours behind the wheel of that Lexus, and oddly enough, I found these seats to be a bit more comfortable. Nissan kept the profile of the Rogue pretty boxy, and even though we're in the model with the large panoramic moonroof, headroom is still pretty generous, both up front and back there in the second row. Bearing in mind that we're in the top-end Platinum trim, the attention to detail and parts quality is significantly above the last generation Rogue. There are a lot of stitched components going on here. We have a stitched center section of the dashboard here, soft touch upper section, and a two-tone color scheme in the model that I'm looking at today. We also have imitation open pore wood trim. This is strangely convincing. Even in strong sunlight, it looks pretty realistic. Really, the only way you'll know that this isn't the genuine article is when you feel it. It's smooth, and real open pore wood trim would of course be rough. Moving over to the center console, we find the new LCD infotainment system. This is the optional 9-inch screen that we'll find in the top-end Platinum trim and available in the SL trim. The rest of the lineup gets 1 inch smaller, an 8-inch screen, but it still has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto support. There's some physical buttons at the bottom, and one thing that I noticed is that Nissan appears to have really improved the processor speed, because this is certainly snappier than other Nissan infotainment systems I've used recently. The change in style continues as we move down from there. We have tri-zone automatic climate control, front 2 zones, and a rear zone. You can control that from the front here. Below the climate controls, we have 2 USB inputs, which you'll probably never use because we have wireless CarPlay. There's an engine start-stop button right there, and then we have a joystick-style shifter. There's an unlock button over here. Drive is back there. We toggle once more for the manual mode, and then press the P for park. 2 big cup holders there, electric parking brake, auto brake hold, and the drive mode selector. This is kind of an interesting texture because this is sort of like open pore bamboo, and then we find that same sort of imitation wood trim, which is a different texture right there under it. The digital shifter allows Nissan to give us a floating center console design, so right here under this area, there's a pretty decently sized storage area where you could put purses or small items. Ride and handling are often two ends of the teeter-totter, but I think Nissan has done an excellent job finding the right balance for this, keeping in mind that it is a family-focused vehicle. We have less tip and dive and less body roll for sure than we had in the previous generation Rogue, and the suspension is not as upset over broken pavement, especially in the corners, as the last generation model. It has a slightly firmer feel, but it's not uncomfortable. This is not a rock-hard, sporty type suspension. According to Nissan, this generation of the Rogue was designed to be one of the quietest entries in this category, and that certainly seems true down here in Southern California. Even out on rougher roads, road noise is well controlled, and there's certainly a lot more sound isolation between the engine and the cabin than we find in the RAV4. There have been a lot of complaints about the RAV4's engine feeling too rough around the edges, and I think a lot of that just has to do with the amount of noise that you get from the engine into the cabin. And even though this engine seems to have to work a little harder than the one that we find in the RAV4, you hear an awful lot less of it. In terms of driving dynamics, bottom lining the Rogue is pretty easy. Again, I think Nissan has struck the right balance in terms of tuning the suspension. It's definitely quiet out on the road, but it could use a bit more pep. There's a new flat bottom steering wheel design. We have shift paddles on the back, although I think shift paddles on a car with a CVT are about as useful as shift paddles on a French Poodle. On this side, we have the controls for the Pro Pilot Assist driving system that includes radar adaptive cruise control and the lane centering system. On this side, we have the controls for the infotainment system and the party piece, which is this large full LCD instrument cluster. This display is not quite as configurable as what we see in some of the modern Volkswagen designs. It has 2 basic layouts, one where the dials are moved over there to the sides, and one where the dials are a little bit more central to the display. You have your typical trip computer readouts, tire pressure monitoring, active safety readouts, all that sort of thing going on in the middle. Rear seat accommodations have long been a selling point for the Rogue, and that continues for 2021. There's a ton of room back here. I have about 6 inches of legroom with this front seat adjusted for me at 6 feet tall. There also isn't much of a hump in the middle, so if you do plan on putting adults or children in the middle seat, it's going to be more comfortable in here than in some of the other alternatives. This is significantly roomier than the RAV4's back seat. Even with this front passenger seat moved all the way back in its tracks, I have about 3 inches of legroom left. The rear seats offer a 2-stage recline. They also fold completely flat with the cargo area in the back, and there's a release lever here as well as in the cargo area. To keep the kids happy, top-end trims will also give you heated rear seats, 3-zone automatic climate control, and some additional charge points in the back. According to the numbers, cargo capacity has shrunk a hair versus 2020, but we still have almost 40 cubic feet of storage space back here, and definitely a big boxy opening, making putting some of those bulkier items like barbecues in the back an awful lot easier. The load floor features Nissan's latest divide and hide cargo system. You can store small items right there under that load floor. You can lower it to use a bit more of the cargo area. You can also tilt it back if you want to hold groceries or other items in place. This space is big enough to put things like 22-inch roller bags back here. For maximum cargo practicality, you can remove them completely from the equation, and that gives us access to the temporary spare tire. I don't suspect too many shoppers are planning on towing with their Rogue, but if the situation presents itself, this is capable of towing 1,350 pounds, which is a little bit of a bump over last year. Although Nissan isn't giving us an off-road version of the Rogue, at least for 2021, we still have pretty decent ground clearance, 8.3 inches for all models according to Nissan, although I think that excludes these little flaps right here in front of the front tires. Alloy wheels are standard on all trims of the Rogue. The base model gets 17-inch alloys, the top-end trim gets these 19-inch alloy wheels, and 235 width tires are standard on all trims as well. To make sure I've answered all the burning questions, it's clearly time to call my good friend Roman. Let's get him on the horn.
Hey Alex, how's it going, dude?
Not too bad. How's it going out there in Colorado?
Oh, you know, lovely as always. So you're in the new Rogue, huh? You know what's funny about the new Rogue? Yeah, the word implies like, you know, a roguish kind of, you know, a little bit on the wild side, a little bit controversial, and yet I can't think of any vehicle out of any manufacturer that is more down the middle of the road than a Nissan Rogue.
You know, that's probably true. I mean, the only others would be RAV4 and CRV, right?
Yeah, but their names aren't like, hey, you know,
right.
I'm out there. I'm out there causing mischief. On the TFL scale of buy it, lease it, rent it, or forget it, now that you've had your hands on it, what are you gonna do?
Oh, buy it, lease it, rent it. I would buy it if you, especially if you're a young family. Nissan's really pushing hard on the family-friendly features, and I think they've done a good job at that. So, especially if you've got kids in child seats, young children, there are definitely some logical reasons to buy this. It's just not going to be as much fun as a CX-5 Turbo, or of course any of those other turbo options that are coming out soon.
Did they do at least a nod or a wink to any kind of off-roadiness? You know, like the RAV4 Adventure.
No off-road trims yet. They obviously can't talk about future product, but they did give it 8.3 inches of ground clearance, which I was a little surprised by.
Well, dude, I just want to thank you very much for doing this review for us, and you know, I owe you another one.
Well, thanks for having me, and I will call you on that sometime. As I've come to expect from Nissan, the Rogue is pretty aggressively priced. It is a little bit more expensive than 2020, but the difference is pretty small. This starts at $25,650 before destination if you want the front-wheel drive S trim. That comes with the LED headlamps, 17-inch alloy wheels, an 8-inch version of the LCD infotainment system, but it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto still, and the Safety Shield 360 package, which includes things like rear cross-traffic detection, blind spot warning, rear autonomous emergency braking, front autonomous emergency braking, and lane keep assistance. According to Nissan, that makes the Rogue best in class when it comes to active safety and driver assistance technologies, although you should know that we don't have standard radar adaptive cruise control in this, like we do find in the Toyota RAV4. But if you want that, it's not too far away. The SV trim will have that for $27,340 as part of the ProPilot package. ProPilot is Nissan's semi-autonomous driving software. It's a hands-on-the-wheel system with aggressive lane centering. The SV trim also gets you 18-inch alloy wheels and the 360-degree camera system, along with a power driver seat for $27,340. The SL trim for $32,000 is where we get leather upholstery, the panoramic moonroof, the 3-zone automatic climate control that this model has, and optionally a 9-inch LCD infotainment system. Otherwise, you still get the 8-inch system that we find in the lower-end trims. If you want the full-on LCD disco dash that we have in this model, you'll want the Platinum trim. That's $36,830 tops with all-wheel drive, $1,400 less if you want front-wheel drive, as the model I'm taking a look at here. Although, according to Nissan, the vast majority of Rogues are sold with all-wheel drive. Any way you slice it, you'll get more standard equipment for a lower base price in the Rogue than the RAV4, the CR-V, or the Escape. And key features like leather upholstery or blind spot warning will happen at lower price points in this than they will in really any of the competition. In addition to all of that, there are features that you'll find on the Rogue that you won't find available in key competitors either, like the heads-up display on the top-end trim here, or leather upholstery for about $32,000. It's worth noting that if you get a RAV4, you can't get real cow at all. And that's before we factor in the reality that generally Nissans are going to sell at a bit more of a discount over MSRP than the Toyota and Honda competition. The best way to look at the Rogue is not as a game changer for Nissan's compact crossover, but a continual refinement of what has made the Rogue a sales success over all these years. They've doubled down on safety, they've doubled down on a spacious and comfortable interior, family-friendly features, child-friendly features, etc. And although Nissan has certainly sharpened the driving dynamics of the Rogue, they haven't turned it into an overtly sporty entry. So this is still going to be about a second slower than the RAV4, CR-V, and certain other competitors out there, especially if you're taking a look at some of the competition that offers more powerful engines, like the 2-liter turbos that are available out there as well. But clearly, acceleration doesn't seem to be in the forefront of most Rogue shoppers out there because they're selling over 400,000 of these every year. But personally, I wish it had 20 to 40 more horsepower under the hood, so that way 0 to 60 times were closer to 8 seconds than closer to 9 seconds like we find in this model. If you haven't already done so, be sure and smash that subscribe button down there at the bottom of your screen, and of course, stay tuned for TFL news, views, reviews, and all that other stuff that Roman always inserts at the end of his videos. I'll see all of you later.